So FedEx just brought the 5 Sprinter Boxwoods that I had ordered for the area around the swimming pool. And I've already opened this one up. It was a little damaged, but not bad at all. But if you look inside it, it's packed usually pretty good. I mean, the pots are slightly squashed, but it doesn't hurt the plant really. You wouldn't want to leave them like this for very long. But these were really nice size, healthy plants. Again, these are the Sprinter Boxwoods. And they have them pretty well packed, you know, and the plant should not be too stressed because it has not been extremely cold. But you can see that it looks pretty healthy. I mean, these have probably been out somewhere at a nursery this winter, so the coloring is a little bit off on them. You know, they've bronzed slightly. But I wanted to basically create a flower bed of sorts around the perimeter of the swimming pool. And I wanted a lot of lighting and a lot of evergreens. One reason we want evergreens is because the first thing that we realized is that the pool attracts leaves in the fall. So any deciduous plant, the trees, our Japanese maple, which is right there. And then there's another Japanese maple at the end of this barn here. The leaves pretty much all ended up in the swimming pool before we had it covered. So we really want to avoid more deciduous plants. That's going to create more work for us. You think you get it cleaned out, you use your little net and try to get all the leaves out. You turn around and there's more in it. So trying to stick with evergreens, try to keep down the amount of mess that we have to deal with. So anyway, I started off with these Sprinter Boxwoods that I had planted around the barn for years. 6 years. These little tiny Sprinter Boxwoods. Now, I planted those originally. They were in little tiny pots. I think maybe pint or quart, the smallest that you can get. The white Proven Winners pots. And so they were really small. So they have grown, but they were in an area around the barn that didn't get a lot of sun. Just a little dappled morning sun. So I think it sort of stunted their growth. So all 11 that were around the barn, I dug up, tried to get as much of the root ball as I could, and I transplanted them here about 5.5 feet apart. And they're about 6 feet from the edge of the concrete. And that was just what I thought was aesthetically pleasing to look at, and also to allow for them to grow to their full potential. But I ran out, so I ordered 2 more, which are those last 2 there. And I estimated I needed 5 more to finish this area right here. And that's what those 5 that I ordered. Now I only have the 4 because that's all that came in the order, but she assured me that there's another one on the way. But I'm thinking that 5 more will be enough to finish that little strip there, and then the boxwoods will be done. Now behind the boxwoods, I wanted something evergreen that was slender but grew tall, just to give some vertical interest to some, I don't know, I just think it looks very majestic to see a tall pillar type tree. And I didn't want it to take up a lot of the landscape. So I planted the arborvitaes. This is a Proven Winners arborvitae called Sting. And I got them as little bitty plants, so I hope that they're fast growing. But I planted one there, and then one there, And I plan on putting a third one over here. Now you can see there's also one here, and then there's one there, but I think I've changed my mind. I think I'm gonna move the two that are closest to the concrete. I think I'm gonna move them over here somewhere. Not sure yet, I haven't thoroughly decided. I have one more that's still in a pot. I could put it over here, and then I would have like a staggered, you know, one here, one up front, one there, you know, one up front, and then one back there. I could leave the 5 on this end, and I may yet do that. I still have plans for this area here. I wanted some yellow evergreen, so I bought some nightlight chamaecyparis or false cypress that are in my greenhouse. They're not as cold hardy. They're fairly cold hardy, but not near as cold hardy as the sting arborvitaes. These sting arborvitaes are super cold hardy, so I knew it was perfectly fine to go ahead and plant those even though it's February. But the nightlight chamaecyparis are not quite as cold hardy, so I'm gonna wait and give it a little more time to warm up, and then I think I'm gonna put them somewhere through here. And then I'm also thinking about getting the castle spire holly, which is another evergreen, but it's got the shiny foliage that I think will be really pretty, especially in the winter with the red berries. I do have a male holly that will pollinate, so it should allow for plenty of production of berries, but I have not ordered those castle spire hollies yet. But I also added some lighting, and I was very pleased with this solar lighting, and I'll try to include an image of what they look like at night. It's just now dusk, and you can see where these have lit up. They just lit up just a few minutes ago, and I think they look really cool. I think that they are the most realistic looking torch flame of any that I have seen. I've ordered several, and these are my favorite by far. You can get them taller. These here come with an extra section where you could make these even taller, but I kind of wanted something that gave the feeling of a tiki torch. And but with the extra section added to these, they just looked excessively tall in relation to these boxwoods. So I took out one section and left them as they are, and they do a wonderful job. I've had these out here for several months now, and every night without fail, every one of these come on. They last all night long, and they don't go out until the following mornings, and they're beautiful. It's like it looks legitimate. It looks like a real little flame glowing in that light at the top. And I just think they're beautiful. They provide such an ambience out here in the evening. And eventually these boxwoods will grow. So, you know, I'm thinking about just leaving them at that height. Now, I will say that when I put the stakes in the ground, I reinforced the stakes with some various things, mainly rebar, because as the earth gets wet from the snow and everything, the wind will want to blow them down. So what I did is I took sections of rebar about 2 foot long, and I drove the rebar about a foot in the ground right up against the pole of this light. Now, I did use a level to make sure that the pole was plumb, straight up and down, both ways. And then I used some zip ties and held it to this rebar. And we have had several strong wind storm type things, and they have not moved at all. And I'm just very pleased with these lights. They're fairly large, and you can see kind of with my hand, you know, the height of them. So they're not the little bitty lights. They're a little bit pricey, but they've lasted a long time, and I'm planning on, they come in 4-packs, and I'm planning on putting them between each one of these all the way down to a certain point in between these boxwoods. But I'm just buying a few at a time, and hopefully they'll still have them in stock when I need some more. One other thing that I'm planning on putting is another type of very tall, slender evergreen. It is the DeGroote's Spire arborvitae, and that's a little one there. And it's probably about 3.5 feet tall right now. I had to move it back away from the bed because we have a septic line that goes right through here. So it's probably not a good idea to plant anything right in here, but I'm just going to and pray that it doesn't interfere with the septic line. I mean, it's a big septic drain line that comes from underneath the house. It comes straight down through here, and it goes to this septic, and this is the lid for the septic tank. So you do have to consider those things, and so this line goes right through here. So I'm hoping that the roots from the boxwoods and from this DeGroote's Spire do not interfere with that big drain pipe. Now, I did build it up a little and mulched it heavily, so maybe it won't, maybe the roots won't go super deep on this one here. But the goal is to put 3 of these here. One here is to the left side of this one. This would be the center one, and then maybe one right in here, because I wanted to center this one here with about the middle of the swimming pool, just to give it some symmetry. And then maybe let that be everything as far as the backdrop, and then everything else would be more in front of these boxwoods, like some annuals. I don't really want to do perennials because of the mess that the perennials can make, and because I'm not sure what I want to plant. So I don't want to invest in perennials and then they maybe only bloom for a short season, whereas an annual will bloom all summer. So that's kind of my goal, to try to get something that provides color all summer. This backyard has really transformed. It's just amazing to think of what it looked like before. So I'm excited. All of this dirt here is from just from the digging of the hole for the swimming pool. And we've planted some grass seed out there that has not germinated yet. And I'll just continue to mow, back in this area. I'm going to go ahead and set these 4 out where I think that they will go. And I might use a measuring tape to just make sure that I've got them spaced the right distance from the concrete and from each other. But a lot of times I just kind of eyeball it, because you can't really dictate how these bushes are going to grow. So even if you try to be perfect, they still may grow off on one side more than another and still end up not being perfect. So I usually just kind of eyeball it, and I think that's good enough. But sometimes I feel like I better measure, because I might be veering off a little bit farther away from the concrete than I think. So, but I'm going to lay these out and let's see how far they stretch. looks like the distance between here and here is the same between here and here. And if you stand down the line and look to see if it's pretty much lined up with the others. It looks pretty good. Now there is a possibility I may need to raise it up a little. It looks like it's a little low, so I think I'll add a little bit more dirt. When we dug the hole for the pool, I asked my husband to save me basically the topsoil and to make a pile for me because I'm always needing dirt. And so that's what this is here. And I'm using it to create the little berm basically that I'm making for the boxwoods, just raising them up slightly. And so that's where I'm getting this extra dirt, and I'm just shoveling it in this 5-gallon bucket. I'm using my little hand truck here and taking it way back there where we're planting the sprinter boxwoods. So, a lot of work, but it'll be nice. Gonna double check and make sure I'm still in alignment here. They look pretty good. So the last plant came, finally. Actually, it came the next day. So this makes the final one to be planted. And I'm gonna leave a little bit of room here for some type of a walkway. So where that dark spot is, that should be the very last one in that long stretch there. And if it grows pretty big, that's still a pretty nice wide path. You'll notice that these boxwoods have a dead stripe through them. When my husband was digging the trench for the gas line down through here, he was using a trencher, and it had an exhaust pipe, and the exhaust pipe got too close to these bushes and it scalded them. And I am hoping that if I cut all that dead stuff off and give it a real hard prune, that'll basically grow out of that and you won't see it. They need to be pruned back really bad anyway. They're super woolly and tall. Well, it's almost dark, but I got them all planted. And here's the last one.